Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Corcoran. I'm the executive chef here. We've got John Solero, our newly appointed pastry chef. Sous chef, excuse me.
Former pastry chef.
Former pastry chef. But what we're going to do is kind of fall is the theme. So we're going to talk about some fall-like flavors. We're going to make a really nice salad that I think speaks to the fall, as well as a play off of carbonara, which is a pasta dish. So we're going to do that with a little bit of pumpkin puree and some more of a cinnamon allspice type flavor to that, as well as some jerk chicken tacos, which I think we're going to talk a lot about balancing of flavor of things. So you'll hear me mention that quite a bit. I always say real quick, so if you're a pastry chef, you got to be very intelligent, because that's all baking soda rises or and spreads and powder and so on and so forth. If you're a culinarian, you should be able to balance flavors and play with different flavors, and that's what I think is something I like most about playing with food. So I'm going to start here with a real simple apple cider vinaigrette. Dressings can be made different ways, but what I do is you always want to start with an emulsification. And by the way, if anybody has any questions or wants me to, answer something, or it's two-way street, so please feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about. When you make a salad dressing, there's different types, but you want to start with an emulsification. So an emulsification is essentially two things that don't belong together. So a couple of examples that we're going to use today, you could probably use one, but I'm going to use 3 times. So honey is an emulsifier, Dijon mustard is an emulsifier, and also an aioli, which is made with eggs. In this case here, to kind of keep it safe, I'm using just maybe a little bit of mayonnaise in there, and that'll help give it some body when I make the dressing. So what I want to start doing actually real quick is a lot of dressings that I like to make have a lot of herbs in them, and also a shallot or some garlic. In this case, I don't have any sharp shallot, so I'm going to use a red onion. So just real quick, I'm just going to put a little bit of that in here. I'm not going to use all of it, but just so you can kind of see what I'm going to do. And cutting yourself doesn't happen if you're paying attention. Every time I've ever cut myself, it's always been when I'm not paying attention. But you also want, if you do the claw method, you're less apt to cut yourself. So we're just doing this for a little bit of aromatics to go in the dressing. If you didn't want this, you don't have to have it. Also, if you were making dressings a couple days in advance and you wanted to put a little bit of shallot or onion in here, you would want to strain the dressing. So like, let's say you're making this dressing on Monday, you're not having it until Thursday, you want to strain it, otherwise the onion, it'll overpower the dressing. So just want to point that out. So
How do you strain?
I would just take like a chinois or a china cap and just kind of put it through a mesh strainer. And to that point too, that's, if you were going to do that, that's when I would add the fresh herbs at the end. I always say 100 chefs, 100 different ways. My approach is, if you're using dried herbs, you want to use that at the beginning of something that you're cooking. Yeah, fresh herbs tend to go in most dishes at the end. So in this case here, I'm going to use a little bit of Dijon mustard. About a tablespoon and a half, a little bit of honey. And again, we're talking about balance of flavor. So honey is sweet. You got the aromatics from the onion. I'm going to use a little bit of mayonnaise to, I don't want to say cheat, but if you wanted to, you could take an egg, and that would also do the same to stabilize it. We do a little bit of salt and pepper. And then we're using apple cider vinegar. You could use anything you wanted. You could use, sometimes what I did actually with this is apple cider vinegar, but I add a little bit of apple juice to it as well, just to kind of make it a little bit more sweet. Traditionally, ratios are 3 parts oil, 1 part acid. I like to go a little bit more of half and half, or maybe 2/3. So essentially, one little trick I'm going to do too here is wet a towel, which is going to help keep my bowl stable, hopefully. So what I have in here is the honey, the acid, and everything but the oil, essentially. So I'm just gonna whisk this up a little bit. If you were making a lot, you can use a little bit of a blender. You can use a blender. So I'm just kind of incorporating the honey, the Dijon, and the tablespoon of mayonnaise. I like a little bit more Dijon in mine. In there. So you could also put any different type of acid you wanted to do. You want to make a red wine vinaigrette, use red wine. And then, John, actually, just to get you involved, you want to maybe add the oil for me? Thank you. So for this, you want to add the oil slowly until it emulsifies. And then once it's emulsified, thicker, then you can add more of a steady stream. So we're going to go ahead, just a little bit of time here. You want to take your time with this so it doesn't separate. Now there's a couple of things you can do if you are uncomfortable with this. There's something you can buy called xanthan gum at the grocery store. It comes in a little package for $2. That's what, so you can see, keep on a little bit more. Let me finish this off first. Keep going. Just dump the whole thing in now. So.
What kind of oil are you using?
I'm sorry?
What kind of oil are you using?
So I just use salad oil. So I find if you use like extra virgin or even olive oil, it might be a little healthier, but it's going to give you that kind of metallic type taste. So, also, I wanted to take, I'm using this for a couple different things, but I had some, well, let's put some herbs in it. We're going to put some parsley. Tarragon would go well in here as well. And John, did we have any? What else did we ever have? But you can see here that it's emulsified. But what I wanted to say real quick is if you wanted to buy xanthan gum, so what like big grocery stores or big corporations and things, when they're making like tuna salad, chicken salad, so it doesn't separate with the water, they add what's called xanthan gum. And you want to mix xanthan gum with a little bit of oil. A little bit goes a long way. If you mix xanthan gum and water, your hands will be slimy, very slimy. So,
Did you spell that?
I can tell you it begins with a Z. How's that? Z-A-N-T-H?
I think it's an X.
Oh, it's X.
Yeah, X-A somewhere.
Sorry. But so if you want, so to have this stabilized, let me just give this a couple. If you take a plate. So we could get this thicker, essentially. It could be as thin or as thick as you want, but there is some body to it. You want to be able to drizzle it like that. So I would call this a light nappe. So if you put your hand in it and that line still stays, then you know you have a light nappe, but you could have it thicker if you wanted to. So just wanted to show you that. So what we're going to do for this salad is, and one thing too I want to say is always try everything you make. So lettuce is bland, right? So I usually put a little bit maybe more salt and pepper in the salad dressing that I make to offset that. So for this, what we're going to do is we'll play with the presentation of things as well. So I'm going to take a little bit of dib lettuce. It's also called Boston lettuce. You could toss it. So John's going to go ahead and he's going to start assembling these salads as well. But I just want to make things with a little bit of color. So I'm using this bib as more of a cup. And I like to have, when you plate things, to have it a little bit white. so you can see that negative space. But for this, we're going to take some mandarin oranges. Arugula is peppery. I am going to toss that in a little bit of this. Again, we talked about balance of flavor, so we have the peppery from the lettuce, the sweetness from the oranges and the cherries that we're going to put on here. You can use any lettuce you want. Let's turn that over to John. I think things, when you plate things, odd numbers are better, so, 3, 5, 7 instead of 2 or 4. Again, 100 chefs, 100 different ways. That's just what I think. We can take that. I'm going to take some dried cherries. Again, you could macerate these. You could soak them in red wine, and whiskey, brandy, whatever you wanted to do. These I just have dry on their own. I'm not going to count how many cherries, but 7 looks good. A little goat cheese. John, do we have some lime zest?
There is.
So we've done this before here, but you could essentially take, just for presentation reasons, you could take a little bit of goat cheese. I like tangerine or orange better, but you can mix some zest with a little bit of panko breadcrumb, gluten-free breadcrumb if you wanted to, and it just gives it a nice little look, even if you just did that on one side. Take that like that. Then we want to talk a little bit about a crunch factor. So here we have some cinnamon spiced pistachios that we roasted earlier today. So we just take them, the dry heat, we just make a dry rub, toss them with the nuts, put them on a sleep pad, a slick soap pad, bake them in the oven for 5 minutes or so. So kind of putting those around that. Finish it off with some English cucumbers. Now, get this so you go ahead and just drizzle a little bit more on there if you want. And to add more crunch to it, we're going to finish it off with some shoestring sweet potato. And so all that's essentially is just julienne, or even with a box grater, take the sweet potato. You could dredge it, we did not in this case, but you could dredge it in a little bit of cornstarch, fry that up, and it'll be a little bit more body to it. So essentially here is our fall harvest salad with dried cherries, English cucumbers, mandarin oranges, goat cheese, and pistachio. Where you're going to be able to sample this in a little bit. Anyone have any questions or comments? I think that looks nice. It's colorful with different colors. We should, we'll clear up a little bit of a table here. And lastly, and I apologize, I wanted to put a little bit of this bull's blood on there. This is not really from a bull. This is from, beets, beet leaves or beet seeds. So just a little bit on there. It's colorful. Just adds to it. A lot of different nice microgreens that tend to come from California are really outstanding to work with. So with that, that is the set. And so just a little bit here, John's going to finish up making the salads, and then Charmaine and Loretta and Pam will help pass them around. So. Any questions on the salad or anything? Or?
What is the ratio of fresh herbs to dry herbs?
That's a good question. So dried herbs, I don't really like dried herbs, but I suppose maybe if I was making a tomato sauce that was going to cook for 6 to 8 hours, I would use dried. But so to answer your question, I would prefer not to use dried. But if I was going to use dried, they're more powerful, I find. So I would go more fresh, less dried if you were making something. If you took a little bit of chopped parsley to put it in a pasta dish, and if you use dried parsley, that's going to give it a lot more of a deeper flavor, and you'll be tasting a lot of parsley where it's more mild with fresh herbs. So just give me a quick second here. Now what I want to do, I'm sure we have some people that are Italian in here. I'm going to do a carbonara dish. I'm going to do it slightly different. You know, traditionally that does not involve cream. I put like a tiny bit of cream in there. What usually, and we will do this here. So I have some that I've already made for you to try. I'm going to demo it live here with the egg yolk. So the egg yolk and the cheese give it that creamy texture. So
You want me to turn around?
to do this, I'm going to get my pan hot.
I'm gonna go 3/4 so I can see too. Oh, I see.
There you go. All right, so for this pasta dish, I'm making it with bacon. You can use pancetta. So what I've done for time's reasons is I've already half cooked the bacon that I'm going to use. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of salad oil to this. These pans heat up really quick. You know, hot pan, you can tell the oil kind of separates. So we're ready to get cooking. Before I add the bacon, since it's already cooked, I'm going to add a little bit of white onion to this that I've julienne. Now, traditionally, it's more your pancetta. I've seen recipes with peas, not peas, but I like to add the onions to it because I like to caramelize them, so I'm making them translucent and releasing the sugars. A couple ways you can caramelize onions. In fact, with absolutely no oil at all. You just put onions in a pan. You have it on low heat. You stir them, then they're going to caramelize. There's a couple ways you can cheat on that if you wanted to. I've done it with, believe it or not, I worked for a chef one time that he would say, you want those onions to be caramelized real fast? Take a can of Coke and put it in there. And it really does happen with the sugar. So you could also do honey as well. So I'm gonna, once I have the onions halfway cooked, then I'm gonna throw in the bacon and not the garlic because that's just chopped. But again, we're just releasing these flavors. You could add garlic if you wanted to. And so I've used, you could use spaghetti. I'm using ziti. And when I cooked this pasta earlier, what I like to do is cook the pasta, like let's say I'm making a big batch of something. I'm gonna cook the pasta 3/4 of the way, 2/3 of the way maybe even, and then kind of reheat it or cook the liquid of the pasta because this is full of starch. So, you know, sometimes pasta can be overcooked for various reasons, but what you'll see here, what I'm gonna do is this pasta is 75% of the way cooked. So once I get this going and happy and all that, then I'm gonna add a little bit of the pasta water to it. And because we're doing the fall is the theme, for this I have some pumpkin puree. And you could use canned stuff. I bought a small pumpkin the other day. I roasted it 2 days ago, roasted it, and pureed it with a little hand mixer. So stuff at the store is fine. In addition to that, I also have some butternut squash that we diced up. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of that in there. We talked about herbs. I actually ordered it and it didn't come in, but I was gonna put some sage in here. That would go really well. Unfortunately, it didn't come in. Can anyone smell the bacon? I'm actually going to put a little bit of this liquid in here right now. That does a couple things, just even if it was plain water or any liquid that I was adding in there, that kind of stopped the cooking process. So that's saying I'm multitasking, I got different things going on. I'm worrying about watching this, is the onion's gonna burn, the bacon gonna burn, throw a little water in there, I can go do something else for that. So for this, I'm gonna add a lot of parsley, but I'm gonna add the parsley at the end. Do you have any questions or anything? I'm just continuing to cook the onion roll right now. John's open for questions as well. I'm sorry? Pin cheddar is best. I would agree with that. You know, more cured smoked. It's a little bit of a, it's more dense, I would say, even when you render it down. So because like you can't really see, but all I have is a little bit of liquid in here, but I can already tell this is starting to get thick. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of this pasta water. I'm gonna put this ziti in here. You can use any kind of pasta. Now I have not added the pumpkin puree yet. That's going to add, that'll give it some body as well. So right now I'm just kind of getting the pasta to continue to cook into the liquid. When you add the egg, so one of my secrets that I like to do is I like a little bit of butter, or I have no butter here, but a little bit of butter or a little bit of cream, and almost anything I do. At home, not here. So I'm going to add this puree right now. I would say too, the pancetta is a little bit, I find it to be a little bit more mild and not as salty. There's minimal difference, but. So I'm just incorporating this pumpkin puree. I didn't add much to it, but you could add cinnamon, brown sugar, all that good stuff if you wanted to. So this is simply take the pumpkin, roast it, put it in a blender, whip it out. Liquid. Now I don't want scrambled eggs with what I'm making, so in a minute I'm going to turn down the temperature and then fold in an egg at the end. I've seen people use whole eggs and egg yolks. Times that I've made it, I've always used just egg yolk. You know, it's just with that pumpkin, it's getting creamy now and there's no cream in it. So I will, what you're going to taste has a little cream in it, but I will omit that for this. But you can't forget the cheese. It's a little Pecorino Romano. You can use any hard cheese that you want. You can use any cheese, but I would recommend a hard cheese. What I like most about this, like I said, it's giving a creamy appearance without any cream in it. So I'm just going to shut that off for a second. I'm going to add a little bit of diced butternut squash. We small dice this. Again, I would recommend, you know, we're talking fall flavors. Sage is really good in here, like I mentioned. So, I'm going to take my egg here. And John, while I'm finishing this off, if you want to start assembling plates for the pasta dish. Yep. And a little parsley as well. Any questions or anything?
Chef, that salad is the best.
Great. These are pasteurized eggs that we use here, but if they weren't, you know, they're safe to eat if you would have them at 160 degrees. But this here, I have this pasta right now, it's cooling down rapidly. I'm going to fold this in just 30 seconds here, and we won't have scrambled eggs, and we'll have a nice velvety, creamy, without the cream pasta dish. That they've been cooked to a certain temperature. Yes.
Have you ever used the liquid eggs that you buy in the store in the portion?
I have. I find
Would
that
that work in this?
it would, and those would be more likely than not pasteurized. So absolutely, that would work just fine. I would go with the egg yolk or whole eggs though. I wouldn't use egg whites. Taste this. See how we're doing here. I don't want to put too much salt in it because you can really taste the bacon. But I am putting a little bit more black pepper in there.
Not easy to get that egg yolk in there without scrambling
It's not.
by yourself.
And so, you know, like I feel very comfortable that it's, you know, below, it would start scrambling at 120 degrees. So I feel good that it's rapidly cooled. There's no cream in it at all. And it looks very, very creamy. Like I said, I did what you're gonna have. It does have a little bit of cream in it. But this is the more authentic way. And I'm gonna finish it off with some peas for color. And we're gonna garnish with a little bit more butternut squash. But I think this dish is phenomenal for the fall. It's healthy. There's no, I didn't put any butter, I didn't put any cream in there. What you're having is different.
Does what we're having have the egg yolk in it as well?
I'm sorry?
Does what we're having have the egg yolk in it as well, or just the cream substituted for the egg yolk?
Correct. So that's a great question Mr. Kraus asked. I do not have raw egg in the pasta that you'll try. There is no raw egg or egg yolk in the dish that we're going to be preparing here for you in a minute.
Do you have trouble finding fresh herbs?
Not generally, no. You know, I mean, some of the staples that I use quite often are like thyme, rosemary, sage, rosemary, tarragon. I like a lot of dressings with tarragon. Parsley, cilantro. But for this, just to finish this off, and you can take a picture if you'd like. Got a little bit more cheese on top. And then for the season, for this here, I just have a little bit, but I want to put a little balsamic reduction to it. That's really simple. You can take some balsamic vinegar, wide pan, spread base of bottom pan so it's going to reduce quicker. If you wanted to cheat a little bit, you could put a slurry in there, which is cornstarch and cold water mixture. But for this, we're just going to do that. I like the way that looks with the negative white space, and then we have the balsamic complements that. So if you want to take a picture of this, I think that's really nice. Yes. I have not used squid ink pasta here. That would be a good idea. I've used. We have. I probably in a year and a half or so I've been here, I maybe used them 8 times. But if I felt like a lot of people would like that, I could offer that more. I will, if anyone wanted to try it with the egg yolk, I have a little bit here. I encourage you at the end if you want to take some pictures. John's the one working, I'm just talking. Absolutely.
This is delicious.
I'm just going to take a second here and sanitize my area. No.
I have a question.
Yes,
Do you think you'd ever make this far again?
absolutely. You could, excuse me, you could also do this with gluten-free pasta. Give you a little bit of that would have been a good idea to print some recipes on. If anybody wants a recipe though, just email me and I can send you.
Will somebody come and cut up all the ingredients for us?
Sure. I know. So the last dish I'm going to do here is the jerk chicken. I think this has big, bold flavors. So I'm going to do it as a taco, but you can put it on a tostoni, you can put it in a pasta dish, you can eat it with rice. Sky's the limit, really. So lots of choices. So I really enjoy this chicken dish that we're going to do. I've got my chicken on ice. Just spread this so I don't. Same thing, I want to get my pan nice and hot. This is great. So what you're going to have is chicken thigh. I made it all with the chicken thigh, so I have a little bit of chicken breast just for demo, but I would recommend chicken thigh. It's more fatty, better flavor.
Chicken thighs.
Tends to be less dry. This would be a great Sunday afternoon. You make a big batch of this, eat it for a couple of days. It would freeze well as well. But so, I just bought some regular red delicious apples at the store. All I did was peel them, toss them with a little bit of cinnamon, nutmeg, brown sugar, tiny bit of melted butter. Put them on a sheet pan, roasted them until they were soft. There was a lot of, all the sugars coming out of the apple, so it was really gooey, syrupy. You can make just what I just did, and you can put that on ice cream for dessert. So very, very simple. So I'm gonna get my pan hot here. I did apples, you can do pears. You can do any kind of apple you want. I do want to talk for a minute before I cook the chicken on what I did for the marinade. And so we talked earlier about balance of flavor. So I've got really sweet here. I'm going to use some lime zest and lime juice. That's the acid. I'm going to put some chive in there. So there's my aromatics and herbs. And so for this jerk marinade, it is a little bit spicy. It's not terrible, but it's going to, my point is it's all going to blend together with the sweetness of the apples, the acid, and the herbs. So, but what I did is I roasted some peppers, one little, John, were those weren't jalapenos. What were those red peppers in the?
They're like a sweet, like serrano almost.
Serrano. It wasn't a Scotch bonnet. We actually got some random peppers in, so I was playing with them. So I would just take one jalapeno, take that with a couple of red, yellow, whatever peppers you want, roasted those up. Put a little bit of, so what it's in there is a little bit of molasses, cayenne pepper, chili powder, and a tiny bit of pineapple juice. So for this, I'm going to take the chicken. This pan's getting hot quick. Oil. And like I said, as soon as you put it in there and it starts spreading, I know the pan's not too hot. If it was too hot, we'd be smoking to death over here. So, but it just spreads just enough so I can tell that it's hot, but it's not gonna start burning. So for this, what I'm doing is, if it was the thigh, I almost want to kind of pull it apart. So if you were making this at home, you can sear it, you can put it in a roasting pan, bake it in your oven, right? And then with the sauce, I'm going to deglaze with the sauce and then kind of pull it apart, shred it like it's tacos. Thighs are easier to do with that. I can almost just pull it apart with my tongs. For this purpose, it'll be a little bit more challenging. I probably would take it out of it and chop it up on the cutting board, which I will do. How's the pasta? Again, same thing. I could add garlic, the aromatics of garlic. You could add a little ginger to it. That would be really good. And that's the great thing about, being in culinary arts. Yeah, if I was sitting down, I could have thought, oh, ginger would have been good in that, but wasn't thinking that until it just kind of popped in my mind. So that's what's great about always just kind of thinking about different flavors. Again, if you're a pastry chef, you got to be smart.
That's why I gave up on it.
That's what you do. You want to spread your plate over on her. I'm just gonna let this cook for another minute or two. I think this speaks fall-like too with the apples and those flavors. So again, just with the sauce, took all those ingredients, ketchup, chipotle, cayenne pepper, the peppers, and puree it together. Molasses, there's a lot of molasses in there. Wouldn't hurt to put a little bourbon in there. Just thought of that now. A couple of sanitary things, we always wear gloves in the kitchen when there's handling ready-to-eat foods. So if I'm cutting a pepper, if you were to walk in and see me cutting a pepper, what's he doing? It's not going on a salad, it must be being cooked somewhere. So just like this chicken's gonna be half cooked. I'm gonna take it out, chop it on the block, but this won't be used again for anything. So these tacos are gonna be assembled with some cheddar cheese. And John, did you want to talk a little bit about the aioli you made?
Yeah, I should say basically it's a little bit of lime juice, some cilantro, and sour cream blended together. Add some emulsification as well.
Oh, that is. Very good.
So I'm gonna take a little bit I know that that's spicy, that's sweet. I want to add some of my lime zest to this. Just a little bit. Or a lot of it. Throw the apple in there. I think I was peeling and cutting too many apples for no reason. You make this, it sits overnight, it's going to get stronger, the flavors are going to marry more. I have about equal parts chicken to apple in here. It'd also be nice if you put a little bit of red cabbage that you could pickle, simply shred it, mix it with acid, break it down. Don't break it down too much, it'll give you a little bit of a crunch.
Oh.
I think when you try this, you'll really find the flavors. You'll see what I'm talking about with the sweet, the heat. Cilantro would be great here. I'm putting chives in. If I wanted this to be more of a velvety feel, I could put a little butter in there, Monte over some diced cold butter into it. That would give it a sheen or a sauce. Also could say, I don't want any butter, but I like my pasta water trick, so I'm going to put a little bit of that in there. And that will thicken it up as well. Any questions or anything, or? I'm sorry. This was sizzling, I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. Yes. We did, so what I just took was cayenne pepper, molasses, peppers, brown sugar. I would recommend bourbon, although I did not do that. There's a little bit of cumin in there. Pineapple would be good instead of the apple. I did put a little bit of pineapple juice in the marinade.
How are you doing?
How are you? Doing well. That's delicious.
I
Good.
know it is. They gotta save you some.
They got you, you're right.
That's the finished product.
Let me see, Brian.
And again, if it would, so things we talked about with adding, more sweetener or acid to offset the spiciness to it, you could also put in a little bit of diced butter in there. That would cream it out as well, so. I'm sorry? Yeah. I'm not putting it on a taco, but just to get the idea. And we talked about crunch as well. I had some pumpkin seeds, pepitas. John, what did you put on the pumpkin seeds?
It's just a little bit of cinnamon.
Put a little of this on top. Put a little bit of lime zest. You can take the taco shell, you could use corn tortilla would be probably more authentic. You could take that, you could cut them up, bake them, fry them. That would even be good for a little cocktail party if you had that out.
Oh, sure.
With some chips. Make sure I'm invited.
You're gonna cook it.
Yeah. So I do want to thank Pam, Charmaine, John, Loretta, everybody behind the scenes, and a special thank you to Joy for hooking this up, and to also Kid Joy. Is everybody full? We have more if you want.
Got some pasta, some pasta. Maybe.